That's all.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. We have been privileged over the past 4 years of our term to work, learn, and play on the unceded traditional territory of the Puyallup, Chilliwack, and Sumath tribes. This board also acknowledges the marginalization that many members of our community have experienced, whether as a result of race, sexual orientation, or gender identity, or other personal circumstances. The board is committed to providing a working and learning environment that recognizes the inherent dignity of all persons, that is inclusive of all, and that treats everyone with respect. Can I get a mover for the agenda, please? Trustee Reichelt, second. Trustee Ferguson. Any comment on the agenda? Trustee Moss.
I'd like to move an addition to the agenda, or rather an amendment to the agenda. That is trustee reports, that these be given orally instead of written so that we can thank our constituents.
Thank you, Trustee Moss. I'm not sure if that is in order because it is in our bylaw. So we can't just add it to the agenda unless we suspend or amend the bylaw.
You're the chair, you have all the power.
Well, no, I have to follow the rules of Robert Rules of Order. So I'm going to have to rule that one out of order, but we would have to amend the bylaw or suspend the bylaw in order to...
Suspend it just so tonight, go on time. Too quick, but...
Well, why don't, when we get to trustee reports, you can make that motion if you'd like, okay?
Okay.
Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. Any other discussion on the agenda? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you. Opposed? Trustee Moss opposed, thank you. Okay, can I get a mover for the minutes of September 13, 2022, please? Thank you, Trustee Bondar. Seconded, Trustee Swank. Any discussion on these minutes, trustees? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. That's unanimous. Thank you. We are moving on to public participation. Could we put the norms for public participation up on the screen, please? If you already know the norms, because you've been here for every meeting, you can certainly just come up to the podium and state your name and your question. Well, you'll get another chance at the end of the meeting. Okay, looks like there's none. We're going to move on. Action items 3.1, policy renovation project, policy 661. Superintendent?
Yeah, this will be the Secretary Treasurer. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
This one is coming back to the board. The board had asked that we put more about the process that's required for naming or renaming of facilities. So we've added a fair bit of information around that. So, so that's the main change in this. So it's quite a bit longer now, but it does describe the whole process.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Unless there's clarifying questions, can I get someone to move? Is there a clarifying question?
Sorry, so exactly which part of it was the part that you made the changes to? My printer didn't print in color, so I have nothing here.
It's all that.
Oh, okay, that's the part, okay.
So just press your button there.
There's also one correction needs to be made. It says District Parent Advisory Committee. It should be District's Parent Advisory Council. So just a typo there, so that'll be fixed on the final.
Thank you.
Okay, trustees, any other clarifying questions? Oh, please, go ahead.
Sorry, so that was the part that we changed the last time, right? And so the new part that you changed this time is which item? Because this looks like the last one, right? No. Oops. Sorry.
No, the board was, or the policy was quite short before, and the board asked that we include the process piece into this. So all of that section under process is new, as well as a bit of rewording in the first paragraph.
Okay. Thank you.
Trustees? Would someone like to make a motion? Trustee Bondar. Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Trustee Moss. Any discussion? Would you like to speak to the motion, Trustee Bonder?
I don't have any comments, thank you.
Trustee Richaud?
So I don't exactly, I think that the staff did a good job. It's really good and very clear. I guess my one concern is if it was up to me, if I was a board of one and not on a whole board, I would actually just not have us ever name anything against people. I would take that language out. So I'm just wondering if anyone else on the board shares that concern. If so, we might want to think about that. At this point, as this being the last meeting of the current board, I don't necessarily feel I need to vote against the policy, but if there was a lot of people on the board who have that same feeling, then I would suggest that maybe we could look at that. So I'd be curious to know what other people think. I just think that naming after people is fraught and oftentimes change, and then you've accidentally got something named after someone that's maybe not someone that you any longer want to elevate. So I think that luckily that hasn't been the case in our district that I know of, but it has been in other districts. So I just think a lot of districts have moved away from that, and so I would like to see that. But like I say, this is always a policy that can be looked at again by a future board as well. So.
Seeing no other comment, all those in favor, please indicate. That looks unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to policy 662.
Thank you, Chair. That's policy. This policy actually was brought forward at the last September 11th public meeting. I made an error in not liaising with two partner groups because we started this process back in January 2021. So soon after the last public meeting, I connected with the two partner groups, consulted, garnered feedback. Plus, I took some feedback from the last public board meeting. And so what we have now is the addition. I've also sent this back to Harrison Company to garner feedback to ensure that this is in compliance. So what's in red is what's been added. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Trustee Richaud.
I move that the Board of Education reaffirm Policy 662, childcare as presented, keeping with the requirements of the School Act and Ministerial Order M326 regarding childcare on school property.
Seconded by Trustee Bondar. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Trustee Richaud?
I would. So the last time this came before the board, I did speak to the fact that I didn't think it had that sort of aspirational language about actually believing in the concept of childcare, and so thank you to staff for adding that. I know we passed it last time anyways, but I do think this is better now, so I'm even happier than I was before, so thank you very much. I'm happy to vote for this motion.
Trustees? Trustee Moss.
Well, I like the fact that this policy addresses the fact that this is only going to happen if we have space and if it's congruent with the way our schools are functioning. So I'm very thankful for the staff, the way this has been written, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Moss. Any other trustees? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. It's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. We are on to policy 680.
Okay, and this is also coming back a second time to the board. You had requested that we add something regarding financial hardship, and so we have a line that says where financial hardship exists, the district will ensure fees do not become a barrier to student transportation. So that's the main change in that one.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Trustees, any clarifying questions, or would someone like to move the motion? Trustee Moss?
So just a clarifying question. So the second sentence says all riders may be charged a fee for service. And then it discusses the adjusted rates. And then it says the board will provide bus service to students who live where the catchment, but then so it kind of leaves room for, yes, we're going to pay for your busing, but we might charge you. And I'm just wondering if a caveat stating that would only be charged if the school district did not receive appropriate funds or adequate funds.
That's actually, we do charge now, there's a $25 fee for registering for all students, so that's why that's in there. So.
So I wonder if we should say that, because the way it's laid out, I remember that we're charging $25 because I remember voting against it. But the way it's, I don't know, is that in the regulations? Okay, there, I'm good.
Great question. Would somebody like to make a motion? Go ahead.
I move that the Board of Education reaffirm Policy 680, Student Transportation, formerly Policy 710, Transportation, as presented.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Trustee Bondar, thank you. Trustee Bichette, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, so I believe, the one who moved to send this back to staff for a bit more clarification. So I was happy to see one of the things was that we weren't using the language that's used in the district before, where like about courtesy riders. So I'm glad to see that back in there to be in alignment with how we talk, because otherwise I thought it was confusing. And I also like to see that we're specifically saying that fees won't become a barrier to student transportation where there's hardship, because we don't want people to think that they can't attend school because they can't afford to pay for the bus. So I'm happy with the policy as presented. I sort of understand Trustee Maz's concern about the one thing, but I think maybe Secretary Treasurer, you can answer this for me. It seemed to me like we say they may be charged, because otherwise, if we ever needed to increase the fee, we'd have to change the policy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, I have a question too. Is that right?
Trustee Bondar.
I guess mine is a similar tone. In the third to last paragraph, we do say that buses will be provided on a courtesy basis, and then fees will apply to courtesy riders. Essentially, I just didn't feel like they were courtesy riders if they were going to have to pay.
Well,
Oh, right.
the reason we differentiate is because we won't necessarily guarantee them a ride. It's if there's availability, if the bus goes by their place, like they have to get to the route wherever it is, and then it's only if there's room on the bus. So if the bus gets too full, then we no longer have room for the courtesy riders.
Okay.
So that's why.
Thank you.
Any other trustees? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate. Looks unanimous. Thank you, trustees. We're on to 3.2, Mercury Report.
Thank you, Chair. So you have extensive information regarding the 2023 BC Adolescent Health Survey. Really quickly, this will be the 7th BC survey in 2023. It normally asks questions, youth age 12 to 19, so grades 7 to grades 12. All aspects of their health, ranging from extent of the alcohol and marijuana use to if they have skipped school recently. That is extensive information that we collect. We normally get a report from Mercury. We also get an extensive report for the Fraser Health East region, as well as for the province of BC. Generally, we would then connect with our partner groups and have public forums and presentations. And on top of that, we would then spend some time looking at connecting the dots. And if you recall, we also engage in the MDI and the YDI, as well as the ministry survey that we receive information on. That's part of our FESL report. So all of this is going to be information that we actually glean and get a sense of the health and wellness of students in our school district. Really quickly, the Mercury Survey is a small sample size, approximately 600 students from grades 7 to 12, whereas the MDI and the YDI are complete grades. They have a large sample size, but the essence is we triangulate all of the information. And then last but not least, at the end of the report, there is information regarding how the information about the survey by itself. 5% of the grade 7 to 12 population, conducted by trained public health nurses. It talks about the topics that they would inquire about. Can be done in one classroom period, and for the very first time, this will be an online survey as opposed to a paper-based survey, which is really going to change and help students sort of get it done much faster. And then I also talked about the consent process. Generally, it's parental notification and student consent. That is what that was used last time too for the survey, and generally if we go the other route, there'd be a larger number of classes, you would have to sample size to get what they're looking for. Questions?
Press your button.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. So do the parents have the opportunity to see this survey before they decide whether or not they want their students to take part?
Yes, they will. I'll be getting a copy of the survey. It's not on the Mercury's website, but the district will be getting a copy, and the information will be, parents can contact the district office to have access to the survey prior to the students having a look at it.
So they have to request to see it then? It doesn't automatically get sent home with the permission? But it's passive consent though, right? How does that work? Maybe you could explain it to us.
Thank you. You're right. The survey isn't sent home. The survey isn't on the website mainly because of the fact that they would like kids to be able to form their opinions at the time of the survey by itself. So there are two types of consent, and it's in your booklet by itself. And it is going to be, in this passive consent, you're right, parents are notified about the survey, and the students will consent at the time of the survey. So that's one of the methods we use. The other one will be parents sign the consent form, and then it's sent back to the school.
Trustee Bondar.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say a couple of things. I love that we're doing this. I think that the wide range of topics is going to be very, very helpful. And I was happy to see some emphasis on eating habits and eating disorders particularly. I have a couple of parents that have asked me questions about this. And so I'm really just happy to see that there are a wide range of topics, but also that this will be implemented by nurses. So that's really, really great. I'm looking forward to the data.
Trustee Ferguson.
Yeah, I'm certainly keen on finding out about the health aspects of our young people, certainly are. But I would like to see this survey. I think it is a little bit presumptuous that we simply go, yeah, this sounds like a great survey, especially since there are questions that says asking about sexual activity. I would like to find out, since it is not directly approved by parents, but they have to notify, how can we see a copy of a previous survey?
Thank you. I can gladly get you a copy of the survey to review.
Mike, if we're voting on it tonight, how is that possible to review something that we vote and accept?
Thank you, Trustee Ferguson. In the past, a couple of times, back in 2013 and 2018, the survey was administered. It was an approval given at the board at the board table by itself. The survey was always available to be seen by trustees, so I'm using the same process as in the past. But if there's a request for the trustees to see the survey, I can gladly provide that information via the Mercury Society.
Trustee Richelt.
I would like to move that the Board of Education approve the participation of the Chilliwack Board School District in the 2023 Mercury Center Society Adolescent Health Survey.
Seconded by Trustee Bondar. Trustee Richelt.
Yeah, so I think this is really, really important. It goes with part of our strategic plan, which is social emotional wellness. And so if we're a data-driven district, we need to have data on the social emotional health of our students in order to actually know whether our strategic plan is working. I also want to point out that trustees were given an extensive presentation about the 2018 survey from the superintendent that went into extensive detail about all of the questions that were asked. And we also got it as a binder full of all of the information on the survey. So it's a little shocking to hear that some people don't remember that, but that's okay. It's extremely important data. And when I was on the Chilliwack Youth Health Committee, wait, that's not what it's called, Chilliwack Child and Youth Committee, which I think Trustee Bondar is on now, when our survey came out in the 2018 results, all of the partner groups that sit at that table, all of the service groups that service teens and youth all look at it, and they figure out from that how they're going to better serve youth in our community. So it's not just the school district that uses that, it's the whole city of Chilliwack, and it would be a dereliction of our duty, frankly, to not pass this. So we should all vote for it unanimously. Thanks.
Trustee Moss.
Thanks, Chair. So the part that troubles me about this is the part that says here, even on our documentation, that parents have sometimes asked if these questions might prompt their child to experiment with behavior they are being asked about. And I know from previous years of seeing the survey, I recall that the way the questions are asked, they don't ask if you have experimented with whether it's drugs or sex. They ask when you experimented, how many times, etc., making the assumption that they are doing it already. And so I have a big problem with 12-year-olds being able to do that. And so, as I have done every year since I've been elected, I am going to oppose this survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Boss. Any other comment? Trustee, you've spoken like once already. Trustee Swanky, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question through the Chair to staff. We moved the motion before I had the chance. You mentioned the framework for enhancing student learning. Am I correct? This is going to provide data that will be as part of the appendix in our FESL report next year?
That is correct. This is going to be another survey that we're going to add to the context, including MDI as well as YDI.
Yes, I do have some concerns about it, despite the assertion that, we've all been briefed on the 2018 survey. Surveys change over time. We have no idea what kind of new questions are in this. And so I will vote against this because I do believe that we should have been given full opportunity to see it before we're now required to vote on it. And I'm all for knowing data and understanding how to better improve our student achievement. But we all know that data can be used in ways that aren't anticipated. So I'm concerned about it. Whilst I have in principle agreement, I do feel I would have liked to have seen it, and so I'm going to vote against it.
Trustee Richard?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one final point that for the public's sake, you can look at the agenda package online. There was an extensive report about the Mercury Survey, about what kind of questions are asked, and also some of the concerns, like people being worried that their kids might engage in these behaviors. If they get asked about it, were refuted by the data that was contained in the report that's in our package. Thanks.
Please.
Thank you, Chair. So the extensive package that we got did not contain the survey. I have seen the survey, and it gives me enough pause to err on the side of caution where our kids are concerned. These kids, it takes a whole day of their school days. It takes a day away from their studies, and the data that they enter in is used by maybe some good purposes, but others that I find very troubling. So while the data that we did receive was extensive, it did not contain the actual questions. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. Well, I had the opportunity to administer this survey when I was contracted for Fraser Health in 2008, and I was a bit surprised that we were asking students these questions, but I was pleasantly surprised. I think we need to be asking kids, and we need to be getting answers from kids and seeing how they're doing and what they're doing. And students are allowed to just not take the survey if they choose. So for me, I feel like the survey was well intended. I feel like the data was important, so I'm going to vote in favor for this motion. Trustee Swanky, please.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking in favor of the motion, I can appreciate that this is time away from instructional opportunity for students. It's identified as being less than one block, so less than 110 minutes of instructional time for these students, plus it's a survey sample size of less than 5% for those students. Given the value of the data and the way that it informs some important decisions, I think that it's time well spent. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, trustees. All those in favor, please indicate. Trustee Bonner, Trustee Richel, Trustee Swanky, Trustee Mumford, opposed? Trustee Moss, Trustee Ferguson, motion passes, and Superintendent will be sure to find copies of the previous surveys for trustees.
I'll make sure I send out a copy. I actually have a paper copy that I can scan and share that with all trustees.
Thank you, Superintendent. We are on to information items. 4.1 enrollment update.
Thank you, Chair. So what I have here is an update. So first of all, I really want to take this time to be able to thank several people that have spent a lot of time. Every year, since we start the school year, we have Nikki Wien, Systems Information and Data Manager, all of our administrators and our clerical staff that spend a lot of hours in the month of September making sure that we are compliant with the information and that we don't have any duplicates in all of our student data, including making sure that some students that don't have the paperwork, that we make sure that we find ways of making sure they can attend school, the school district, despite not getting the funding. So all of those things come into consideration when we eventually come up with the numbers to present. So a bit of a good news since last time, because I think last time we were down quite a bit, and back in the end of August, we were in an upswing. So what we have now is this would be enrollment. So really quickly, 1.95% increase. We can see that. Actual was 14,083. This doesn't count the students at Quaker Secondary or any students that are continuing education school age, because that's an alternate school. Projection-wise, we were projected approximately 219 students at Quaker Secondary and one school age student for continuing education. So slightly down. I think we projected approximately 2% of enrollment increase year after year. That's the percentage increase over last year, the 1.9%. At 2020 to 2021, the increase was 3.51. So again, it fluctuates from year to year, but on average, the last probably 7 years, it's been about 2.5% on average in Chilliwack, which is good. And then here is the final total. So if you look at it really can see, I'll try and it's larger. So Secretary Treasurer had 14,830 in his presentation June of 2022. That count includes alternate students as well as continuing education. If you take that projected number, a notion was to meet 14,610 as the projected full-time equivalency in our school district. Our number was 14,579, so we approximately shot 30.91. But then keep in mind also, collectively, when you take the 14,830, the next slide will show you that if you take the alternate students as the continuing education students, we are down collectively 67.41 in the school district. And that is approximately about $500,000 because I think the funding per student is around $7,800. So this is much better than the number that we had on the 13th of September. Again, thanks to the work done by our staff members. But again, as I always tell you, the month of September, students come, they transition through Chilliwack, given lots of other constraints. And so this is a good news story from our consideration, given our projections, and then also numbers we saw early September. Questions?
Thank you, Superintendent. Trustee Richel?
So just to clarify though, we are short $500,000 compared to our budget. So we are going to be looking at an amended budget that you'll be telling us how we're going to cut that money. Okay, thanks. Oh wait, though, did our budget include a surplus before? Okay, never mind. Too bad.
Any other questions on enrollment update? Trustees? Trustee Swanky, I see you hovering.
Just on that point, I'm wanting to figure out one of the next budget committee meetings, I'm just trying to figure out how the board is going to track the implication of a lower than anticipated enrollment with the budget.
What we'll show you is both for expenses and revenues. We'll show you what we had for the preliminary budget and then what caused changes to come up with the amended budget. So this will be part of the change in the revenues. So. So
based on the fact this is a loss in revenue, but it's also going to be, our costs are going to be lower because we don't have those students. Are we feeling like things are going to settle out okay overall?
No.
Great question, Trustee Swanky. Any other trustees? I'm seeing none. We're moving on to 4.2 bus safety.
Yeah, and this stemmed from a question from the trustees around, there was a couple of questions around seatbelts in buses as well as the swing arms. So it's actually got my name. It should be Alvin Tassels, our Director of Facilities and Transportation, has prepared this report. And I don't know if there's any highlights you want to give, Al, and if there's questions from anyone about this.
I can use this mic if that's all right. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just very quickly, being respectful of your time, some of the highlights I wanted to point out is all of our buses do operate with the swing arm, so that's the red stop sign that comes out. It is illuminated. We have an excellent training program that goes through. And then if you could just page down a little bit, there was questions around seatbelts. There's a ton of work that's happening at the ministry level and different levels on seatbelts. Currently, the direction from Ministry, Transportation Canada, is that our buses, because of the efforts you see there, well padded seats, special equipment, all of those efforts that are put in place are the current use of busing right now. There is some more continued exploration on the use of seatbelts. One of the things that continually we have to look at as a challenge is when we load our buses, there's a variety of size of students, and a seatbelt needs to fit properly to protect the student. So these other efforts are doing that and keeping a more universal seating strategy. So I think that was all I just wanted to cover quickly on seatbelts. If we could go down a little bit. There was a question on cameras. So we've been working hard on our cameras. 85% of all our buses have interior and exterior cameras. The exterior cameras are monitoring everything on roads. The question came up about red light runners. That's one of the strategies we use. And interior cameras are used inside the bus, which are very helpful. If concerns come up down the road, we can use it for training in appropriate situations. The red light runner sequence, I think it's worth just taking a moment to review that with you. So as our buses approach a stop, the amber lights go on, letting drivers know that the bus will be stopping. The driver is watching, and we don't want to trap somebody in a situation where they have to make a quick stop. So the driver is watching, make sure that the traffic is clear, then engaging the swing arm, the red flashing lights. At that point, also monitoring traffic, making sure no cars are coming by, and watching for any areas of danger for the student, any risks there. If the driver were to see a driver that is not going to stop, that is moving through, they will stop the students from exiting the bus. They will make sure that the students are safe. As the vehicle goes by, they're able to push a button which stamps. The cameras are always recording, but pushing that button, press date stamps it or time stamps it. And then when they're back at the transportation office, they fill out a simple report listing that in there. That report goes to transportation manager, and then the recorded video, and that goes to our CMP, and a fine is issued to the registered owner at that time, that is done monthly. So just a quick review on that. And then the other thing is we're doing a ton of work. Our transportation manager, Wayne Williams, is very involved with City of Dawson Creek with several committees, Transportation Advisory, Safer City, ICBC, RCMP, Speedwatch. So Wayne works with these groups as well to help try and educate drivers and keep our students safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Trustee Bondar, do you have a question?
I do.
Al, just hit your button there.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Al. That was really an interesting presentation. I was astounded that you had 138 red light runners last year. And my question was, could we be doing something more to educate parents and drivers about this? That just seemed to be abnormally high. Thanks.
We continue to work with this, even with the schools. We continue to do through the Safer Cities with the city of Chilliwack. We do work as well. So if there's any opportunities that we can use to help educate drivers, yes, we definitely would like to. The RCMP have been very helpful, and if in those areas where you identified 138, a lot of times there's one specific area where we're seeing more of that, and the RCMP will put members at that site and monitor that, and that's extremely helpful. And when the RCMP stop the person and give them the fine, they also get a 3 points as well as the ticket.
Oh, nice, okay.
Trustee Richelt.
I was wondering if our district has any of the long arms that it's mentioned that are being piloted by Transport Canada, the long arm stop signs.
We do not, no.
I was just thinking, I mean, that would probably help because that's 2 full meters, right? If there's a stop sign at the end of 2 meters, if someone tried to blow past, a truck or something, my only concern is that they might break a bunch of them, but it would actually be much more visible than just the little one sticking out the side this far, right? So, not that everyone knows the rules, they should stop anyways, but it might be a very, very strong visual deterrent. So, be curious if we could get in on that action.
My understanding currently with the pilot project is it's not on any school district buses. What they're trying to understand right now is if a vehicle were to hit that longer swing arm, is it going to come back into the bus? Is it going to cause injury because of that piece? So that's the testing and pilot program that's going on currently.
But we have long arms on some of the buses, don't we? I'm sure I've seen them.
So some of the buses have 2 stop signs, front and back. Our larger buses, they're all about 18. On the front of the bus, so I'm the driver, I stop the bus, the student is crossing in front. We have a long arm on the front, which makes the student come out in front of the bus so the driver is able to continually see that student crossing to make sure they're not hidden in front.
Okay, thank you. I knew I'd seen those. I thought,
You did.
well, I'm not going crazy. How are we doing so far? I'm going to ask you 2 questions and then I'll turn my mic off. So how are we doing so far, safety-wise, so far this year? And how are we doing with hiring more bus drivers?
So safety-wise, we have one of this, a very robust training program. Many districts around us look at us for the training program that's going on, and we are more than willing to share and do share with many districts. So far this year, we've had a couple minor fender benders. They've been other drivers distracted driving, or they've bumped into the back of our bus, and we have had no injuries from that. So very, very minor. So that's been good. And then the other question on bus drivers, thank you. So we've been doing a lot of advertising through radio, through signs on fences, through everything like that. We have 11 drivers going through our training program currently. And so those drivers are coming on. We are short-staffed in the driving world. Unfortunately, many times we have our mechanics driving, so our mechanics are trained as bus drivers as well. So they're driving, dispatch is driving, and at times our transportation manager is driving. And we've made a decision that we want to keep the buses running, so we use every resource possible that we can to keep the buses going.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. That's so appreciated because, man, oh man, it really throws a monkey wrench into everybody's world when one bus goes down or we don't have them. And so how many more bus drivers, in a perfect world, how many more bus drivers would you like to see us hire?
So with 11 drivers coming, and if we weren't to lose any, it would be our what we call our AM/PM run. So those getting students to school and home, we could satisfy those needs. What continually happens is we have retirements, we have people moving away, different things, so we continually replace. A lot of the pressure is on our runs in between schools, so those extracurricular activity runs. If they're running at the same time as our AM/PM runs, it becomes very difficult to do that. So we could use another 11 drivers easily to keep those runs going as well.
Thank you.
Trustees, any other questions? I'm seeing none. Thank you, Al. Appreciate it. We are moving on to 4.3, Student and Family Affordability Fund Update. Excuse me. Assistant Secretary Treasurer, please.
Okay, thank you. So, as you all know, we received $1.5 million from the ministry called the Student and Family Affordability Fund at the end of August. We've done some initial consultation with our DPAC, our Indigenous rights holders, staff and other partner groups around our community, and we've come up with some preliminary allocations, as you can see in the report here. The largest one being is giving out $645,000 to our schools based on their head count, because we felt from our feedback that they were best suited to assess the needs of their families and their community. So different schools may be doing different things with these funding depending on how they determine the needs. Of course, they are consulting with the district when they come up with certain ideas, just to make sure that we're on the same page and they aren't really straying from the spirit of the fund, which was to address mainly food security and relieving some student fees. So you can see the number of different initiatives we have, and there also is about $600,000 still remaining unallocated. So we are still taking feedback through our Let's Talk engagement page on our website. So any questions?
Thank you, Assistant Secretary Treasurer Friesen. Trustees, do you have any questions about the Affordability Fund? Trustee Ferguson?
Yeah, Mark, it looks great, and I look forward to spending the remaining 600,000 or such a. Now, just wondering about the school allocations of 645,000. Can you give us any idea of what schools you have here? Schools are expected to consult with their PACs and use the instructions just for the sake of the public, since they can't see this. What sort of use would that would that money be put to, roughly? Do you have any ideas there what schools might do with that?
Sure, and this was part of the reason and the motivation why we decided to give it out to schools, because some schools already have breakfast programs, lunch programs, even cafeterias where they could fund students with cafeteria cards so they can get food in the cafeteria. Other schools don't have anything set up yet, or they don't have the people power to do it. So those sorts of things, they might focus on hampers for other families in need. So it's sort of the spirit of what and motivation of what the school is motivated to do.
Can I just pull up, please? So it looks like it's mainly about food, most of this money, if I'm looking at these, including the one category you said. So is there no other categories that could be used for, like supplies, like materials, sports equipment? Can you give us any further ideas for the sake of the public who are going to hear we have $1.5 million to spend, but I'm sure we're short of some other materials or equipment. So can it be used for that? Thank you.
So this money is supposed to go directly to parents. So it's not to necessarily buy sports equipment and things for the schools, unless this is something that the students would otherwise have to pay for themselves. So if there's sports equipment that students have to buy and they can't afford it, that could be an initiative that the school could take to offer to cover that for them. So.
Go ahead, Chair.
Can also be used for things like if a student doesn't have proper footwear for whatever reason to participate in sports, it can contribute to that. It can be used to waive certain fees. So it's fairly wide open, but certainly food security was a big piece of what the ministry wanted to use for, but there's lots of other ways that the schools can use this to help alleviate the impact of inflation on families.
Can you give us some idea, again for the public, is there a formula for how much goes to different schools? Is it all divided equally among schools? Is it depending on the population, or how is it divided up?
So we decided I should ask, I forget so there was a certain number that we had for elementary and middle, or elementary.
$50.
$50 for elementary per head count, and then 35 for middle secondary. Yeah, so this was the help of these guys. So it's, based on head count and then that allocation.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, just to follow up on that question, was there no distinction made between, say, inner city schools and more affluent schools? Was it strictly head count? It seems like possibly some schools might be more in need than others, although I do recognize that there's hardship across the district.
That's a really good question, Trustee Richel, and that's partly why we held back the 600,000. So we can, we wanted to get the ideas flowing to every school, and we heard the feedback that though you might look like an affluent school, there's still parents in needs there. Like, inflation is affecting everybody, so that at least got it in the hands of the schools and got it going. And then should, let's say for the sake of argument, an inner city school comes along and says, we actually have more needs than what you've given us, we'll definitely take a look at that.
Okay, so that's great then. So what you're basically saying is this is like the baseline amount that all the schools are getting based on the fact that we know that every single school has needs, and then this other fund we'll be able to use for maybe the schools that might have twice as many kids in need than others. Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Trustees, any other questions? Trustee Swanky.
Thank you. Appreciate the information and the addition of not just the school-based funding, but also some good work in the district being supported. I guess my question was just related to Let's Talk Chilliwack. I wondered if there had been much engagement through the platform, making suggestions about how to spend this money.
Yeah, there's been some, and they seem to coalesce around these themes. So so we're starting to hear the same things: helping with food, helping with hampers, gift cards for food, things like that. So good feedback, and we want to be open to the public and hearing from the public. So we want to continue that.
And then just further to that, $600,000 has not yet been allocated. What is our timeline to make those final decisions?
So we have till June 30th to spend this money. Hopefully we could get this going within the new year. We'll see how this first bit of money unfolds, and then we'll see what comes from there.
Seeing no other questions, thank you, Assistant Secretary Treasurer. We are going to move on to 4.4, Budget Timeline and Financial Reporting. I believe this is Secretary Treasurer Slikos.
Yeah, and this is just for the board's information. And last year, the board approved this new process. And so Delane has put it in a nice format. So you can see when things come to the Budget Committee, to the Board of Education, and then onto the ministry where there's a ministry reporting requirement. So it's for the quarterly reports at the top, and then the amended budget, and then the preliminary budget in the bottom section there. So you can kind of see, if you're on the Budget Committee, you can see when you're getting it, and then the board as well. So.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Trustees, any questions? Trustee Moss.
Not a question, I just want to say thank you to Lena, nice job. It's very user-friendly.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Seeing no other questions, we're going to move on to 4.5, BCSDA report. This is Trustee Swanky.
Thank you, Chair. No information that isn't already in our inbox or previously communicated.
Thank you. 4.6, Trustee written reports are in your documentation. Trustee Moss.
So with the chair, at the chair's pleasure, if we could give verbal reports at this time, since this is our last board meeting of the term, be nice to extend our best wishes to folks, and thanks.
Point of order, Chair, is that a motion?
Sorry, can you press your button, Trustee Moss? Your button, Trustee Richel.
Point of order, Chair, is that a motion? If there's a motion on the floor, it needs to be made as a motion, and then we'd second it, right?
Do you have a motion to make, Trustee Moss?
I move what I just said.
Okay, well, it's not, as mentioned at the beginning, I understand that you want the oral trustee reports. I think we all understand that now. As chair, I don't have the power to just grant that wish. It's in the bylaws. Okay, thank you. We are moving on to, meeting summaries are in the package. The next board meeting is on November 7, 2022 at 5:30. We are on to number 5, public participation. Please, if you could throw the norms for public you're already on it, thank you. Please state your name and then ask your question as it pertains to the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Long time no see, many of you. I haven't been to a in-person board meeting in 3 years, so thank you. What were some of the specific initiatives that the district will take to communicate and discuss the results of the BC Adolescent Survey with partner groups?
Good question. I know the last, back in 2018, we had some public presentations, especially with MCFD. Plus, there was another presentation. And then on top of that, Mercury came out and talked about the provincial report by itself. So they came out with 2 reports. One's a provincial report, one's a Fraser East report. So that's the forum. But moving ahead, we can provide that context.
If the chair will allow just a comment. Am I allowed to make a comment after the? Thank you. Ironic that there are concerns about instructional time, given that there's been an increasing erosion of instructional time, some of which, by the way, equate to upwards of 12 hours of total anxiety-induced instructional time, dealing with district and provincial assessments that serve no inherent value.
Thank you, Reed. Hello, please state your name and your question as it pertains to the agenda.
Hi, I'm Debbie Chand. I just had a question. When you're tracking the FTE in September, I'm wondering if we ever track how many students move between homeschool or private school into the system, or the other direction, students that are moving out of the public system into private or homeschool.
Great question. Thanks, Superintendent.
Thank you. We don't track that specifically, but if there was a request, we have the data on our My Education system. We can easily ascertain that. I do get information in the month of December from a software company about the number of students that are attending private schools, the increase or decline, and the increase or decline in the public school system.
I also just wanted to say, as a teacher in the school district, I do appreciate that all schools and students will be supported by the Student and Family Affordability Fund. My personal sort of experience is sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and so I really appreciate that all schools have been given a starting base of money, and then certainly some schools and some students are going to be in more need, which I think is great that you've set that up to sort of address that as it comes. But I really appreciate that all schools do, because I think you're right. Sometimes we don't notice need in some of our schools, and the needs are different, but that's really appreciated. I really thought that was a great thing that you guys have done, so thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Please state your name and your question or comment as it pertains to the agenda.
Katie Bartel, DPAC Chair. Just a quick clarification on the Affordability Fund. We understand that there's an expectation that PACs are consulted by about how to spend that money. We're hearing that that's not always happening already in numerous different schools, so we're wondering if there's any oversight on that. I know there was email sent out telling principals that, but is there oversight that that's actually happening? And is there a due date for the admin to decide how they're going to spend it? I know there's a spending due date, but is there a due date that you want from the schools on how they've decided to do that?
Thank you, Katie. I think we understand the question. Is this Assistant Superintendent? Yes.
We can answer that one. So
In tandem.
So yeah, there is an expectation that PACs are consulted on these dollars. Now, each school is getting quite a large sum of money, so it wouldn't surprise us at all. And in fact, we're hoping that schools are spending it as soon as possible. But I think some good advice to our PAC chairs is to ensure that it's on the next PAC agenda, and principals should be prepared to talk about it. So
In their principal's report.
yes, okay.
Thank you, Katie. Not seeing anyone else brave the microphone there. Just thank you to my colleagues, everyone in the room, and everyone at home for your commitment to public education. It is important work and it is appreciated. This meeting is adjourned. Good night.